Hello, my name is Kimberly Long and welcome to my virtual part of this realm. I am an artist who works primarily with wool and clay and anything that nature gives me. I make primarily nooks, which are doors and dwellings for whimsical wanderers, but I also have started working with wool and have been working with wool for about a year and a half now, and it has opened the door to many different creations, from dragons to Faux-Ever plants, which you will be working with today. It's a great project for the basics and also being able to expand once you get the hang of it. Today you'll get to try your hands at using wool to create your own Faux-Ever plant, which is one of my favorite things to make, because when I moved here from the Southwest, the last thing I could grow is a cactus. So if I can't grow it, I might as well make it. And why not share it with you to bring a little bit of my hometown to my new community? Let's get started. In your kit, you will find a foam mat that looks similar to this, 2 needle felting needles. Do be careful, they are very sharp and barbed at the end. This helps entangle the wool to get the shape that you would like it to become. You should have an empty pot, which we hope to fill with something like this. A mixture of wool, brown wool, a white roving, 2 different kinds of green, one a little bit more than the other, and then a colored wool. Your greens and your colored wool will look just a little bit different than mine, but we can use all the colors to create your own Faux-Ever plant. So the first step that we are going to start with is creating the filler for the bottom of the pot. For this wool, I like to use a lot of my scrap wool that maybe didn't make it into a final project, and be able to fill in cores or create that extra space that I need that isn't going to be seen. So take your mixture of wool and you're going to flatten it just a little bit. Don't separate it out too much. The messier the better, and you're going to roll it up into a cylinder like this. Then with your needle, go ahead and fold it just a little, because what we want to do is try to mimic the shape of the pot. So when it goes in, it fills. So kind of create that shape with your wool, and then grab your needle again. Be very careful. You'll see me working at a little bit faster pace, but you should start out at a slower pace. That way you don't nick your fingers too much, and you can start stabbing your wool. When you do that, make sure you go straight in and at the same direction straight out. If you start twisting or bending your needle, it will break. As you do that, do rotate your wool so your wool will create more of a cylinder shape, or the shape of the pot. And this part doesn't have to be as tight or as much, especially on the top. The more you stab the wool, the tighter it will become. It will entangle all of those fibers together with the barbs. Again, you don't want to go all the way through your wool like that. You want to just kind of use the barbs to push the wool in. This part you can kind of tuck under. And again, just go slowly to stab the wool. As you start creating that shape, you can stop and check in the pot as far as how it's going to start looking. We're going to smash it down, not too much, but just enough to fill that bottom part. Keep working with your needle and your wool, rotating it to tuck in the straight ends, the wild ends. And keep working on your mat, otherwise whatever is underneath the wool will be damaged or your needle will break. So go ahead and keep working that until you feel that it fills that pot probably all the way until about a top layer that's no more than about a ½ inch thick. Once you do that, you can move on to your brown wool. Once you get your mixture of wool for the filler the way you want it, do check again. Make sure there's enough of a layer to be able to put some topsoil or brown wool. When you do this, all you have to do is take your wool. Anytime you want to separate your wool, never use scissors. It will tear pretty easily. If you are trying to pull it like this and it doesn't tear, that just means you're pulling all the fibers that are together. Pull out your hands just a little bit more and they'll separate out nicely. When you cut the wool, you do damage the way the fibers can tingle, and it takes a lot longer to be able to needle felt it. So when you decide how much topsoil you'd like, you can use all of it, a little bit of it, or start with a little and add on more. You can always add on, you can't always take it off. Again, you use your needle, you just start stabbing that top layer. Be careful because this is where it is easy to get yourself with the sharp needle. And you can move it in a circular motion. The more you use your needle on the wool, the flatter it will become. If you want kind of a mound of dirt, go ahead and leave it a little more fluffy on top. But you can tuck in all of these pieces and gather them with your needle to just continue to tuck them in. If you want a little more finished edge around your topsoil to be able to hide all of it, you can use some of the brown and twist it together. Just kind of twist it like this and then add it around the edge. Kind of gives it a nice texture, a little decorative part. If you're not feeling that adventurous yet, you can just keep using the wool as ever it lies. And the nice thing about this medium is it is pretty forgiving at the beginning. You can always refine it and work. The more you use your needle, the more details you will be able to show. Continue to add your brown until, again, it is the top that you want for your pot. And if you are tempted, like I am very much of the time, to use your pot to needle it in, that way you know what shape. Again, be very careful, go very slow, and make sure you're just getting the wool and not your pot. This is where your needle will break if you go in the wool or through the wool too much. If you're not feeling that adventurous, just keep working it out this way. The next step, we are going to start making the core for your cactus. Grab your white roving, and again, we're going to kind of lay it out on the table. Don't separate it too much. And we're going to roll it lengthwise because we're going to try to form it into a ball as loose as possible. So once it's lengthwise, roll it into a cylinder like this using the lengthwise. I'll do that one more time. So lay it out, roll it up so you have a long roving here, and then roll it so it becomes shorter. And this part, you're going to go ahead and start using your hands to start rolling it into a ball. You can roll it like clay, you can squeeze it. The point is to get the fiber tangled in itself. If it starts falling apart, again, just gather it and tuck it in. Once you feel it's somewhat not going to get too out of hand or unravel too much, get your mat, use your needle, and the end that is kind of loose or sticking up, tuck that in first. and over itself and start needling that part first. So you'll see that now the end that was escaping and getting a little wild is now in, and you can start rotating your roving around to tuck in all the other loose ends and start creating a round shape. I like starting with a core because the colored wool can run a little more expensive, and the white roving or the raw roving is a lot cheaper to start with. This gives you more freedom to make bigger pieces and start creating what it is that's in your imagination. So after you worked with the raw white roving, this is the form that it should become. It takes a lot of time to get it like this, but the more you work your needle with it, the more of a shape. If you start seeing a flat spot, just rotate it and work around that flat spot until the flat spot becomes more of a round spot. The good thing is we are doing a top layer of the green wool, so look for your green wool that is the larger amount of green than the second, and this will become the covering for your cactus. When you start working with this wool, again, you want to pull it apart. You do not want to cut it. And what we're going to do is we're not going to worry about the bottom, covering the bottom, because it will just attach to the dirt. Instead, if you want to, you can start creating a base around this, so you know I don't have to go past that, and it kind of saves your green roving and you don't have to use or waste that. Again, all you do is wrap it around like I just did and start using your needle to entangle those green fibers into the core. If you find that it's too thick in one spot before you get too far ahead of yourself, you can go ahead and stretch it out. I find that that helps me be able to stretch and use as much of the colored wool as possible. I do also like when there is a little more variation in the colors with the white and the greens. It kind of adds a little bit of texture and shadowing. So you take that and you just keep adding, tearing the wool off and adding that wool on top until it is completely covered. Again, I'm working faster until you get the hang of it or you haven't stabbed yourself too much. Do work slower. In the next couple steps, you will see a different color each time with the different steps. That's just to kind of show you guys different ideas as far as designs and or to show you what different kind of greens there are out there. If your green isn't this green, it may be one of the other ones. So again, just take your time and you can cover the whole thing first and then go back and make sure that all the white is covered. The nice thing is if you do miss a spot, it's easy enough to tear off just a little bit, and it's amazing to see how just this little thin bit, once it's folded on top of itself and covered, does the work of almost an entire strip. Let's start adding some details now to your cactus. We get to add the spikes to the green covered ball. Luckily they don't poke, but your needle still will, so be careful. You take the second green and just pull off a little bit, about that much, and you're going to start rolling it with your hands. This helps tangle it and makes you not have to use your needle as much to get those fibers to do what you want. You can use your fingers, you can use your hands. Again, just work to twist and tangle them. As you do that, you can think about how you would like your cactus to come out. Some of the round cactus like this have a really neat curve to them. Some of them are straight down. On this one, I went ahead and worked with a straight down, which is easy enough, but if you are wanting a little more unique one, go ahead and start thinking of how you're going to curve it with a spiral. For this one, I'm going to start with just the simple straight down, but on the next one you will see it with a little bit of curve and see the difference for next time you do start it. So you take the piece that you were twisting, keep twisting it, and when you're ready, roll just the top a little bit and start stabbing it right in the center. That's going to be where you start all of your pieces. I've done this a few different ways where I've done one piece draped all the way over and just draped it until I had all the spikes ready to go. I didn't like the way that looked. It looked a little too uniform for me. But as you can see, it will stretch under. Again, you can just take this and pull it off until it reaches the point. If you would like to, also you can double it back and make a thicker row of spikes. So again, once it started here, you can start needling all the way down. This is a great technique for lines. Whether you work in a 2D wool or 3D wool, creating these lines adds a lot of shape, a lot of detail, can really make a piece stand out. Just start going over the line like this. Then once it's pretty much tacked down, in order to get it kind of puffy, go on either side of the line and a little bit at an angle. Again, if you're going to go at an angle, it's the same angle in as the same angle out. And follow the line down. Stay on one side of the line, don't go on the line too much. Follow it all the way down, rotating it. You can go back up. If you start seeing your wool start puffing out like this, you can take a minute and tack that back down. But again, stay on either side of the line. You don't want to do this step on the new green because it will get lost in the darker green or your lighter green, whichever is on top of your core, and you'll lose your spike color. But this kind of accentuates it. Again, the more you work the wool, the more it does what you want. So you can leave it kind of puffy and then take another piece again, just tear it off, tear it apart until it becomes about the length. Before you start rolling it this time, measure it. Since we don't need that first big piece there, bring it down here, come out here and just pull it across. Once you have that, roll it in your hands, tangle those fibers, roll it with your finger, twist it, and then start again. And as you can see, my cactus starting a little flat here because I was working it here, but the nice thing is you can fluff it back up. Grab just the end, make just a little bit of a starting point. And again, you can bring that line straight down. Tack it down with your needle just a little bit. Remember, you don't want to go all the way through your wool. You want to use those barbs. You'll see them on the end. You want to stay within that barb range, especially during this part, because those are what entangles the lighter green onto the darker green, or vice versa, depending on what greens you guys got. As you can see, this is a different style that I needle felted with the spiral. Instead of using all of the wool to create this many slices, these many lines, I went ahead and split between using the lines and then creating lines within the wool itself. To create these lines, just keep needle felting the same path all the way through, and you can work again on the spiral. It's up to you as far as what your Faux-Ever plant is going to be. So now that you have your wool covered in both greens, it is time to add the flowers. With the color that you have, again, you just need to take a very tiny amount. It's amazing once it's folded on itself what it can do. Take the tiny amount, pull it apart, fold it in half, fold it in half again, and one more time, so you have something about that size. Decide where you want your flowers to be. I always start one right on top like this, and very carefully with your needle just tack down the center. Once you tack down the center, it will be easy enough to move your hands away and start making a petal-like shape. Once you're ready to make the petal-like shape, go to the edge and at an angle start forming your flowers. They can be as fluffy as you want or as detailed as you want. The more detailed, the more needlework you will have to do. I kind of like when they are a little more fluffy, except in the center. And the nice thing is once you get that started, it's pretty hard to pull off. You can pull it off if you're not happy with where you placed it, but my suggestion is to let it stay where it started. Once you get one started, you can work as many flowers as you want in whatever patterns you want. Again, fold it over itself a few times. You can roll it into a little ball if you want with your fingers, and then decide where your next flower is going to be. Tack down the center and then start working in the petals. So now is when your Faux-Ever plant gets to find its forever home, and we are going to take the wool that you used to make the dirt in the pot, which may seem like a million steps ago, and we're going to attach it. When you work with it, you'll want to work with it upside down, but I'm going to show you for the purposes of this demonstration sideways. So again, work with it this way, but this is what it's going to look like when you do. This is when you finally get to use your needle and poke it all the way through to the core, that bottom part that wasn't covered. So when you do that, just make sure it goes all the way through to where it reaches inside the green part. When you do that, you'll start noticing that it's starting to tingle. You'll see those fibers starting to tingle. The more you do that, the more secure your cactus will be. Again, be careful to use the same angle with your needle as you go and attach it. This is where needles tend to break, is when you start twisting them. Once it kind of feels somewhat secure, Then you can start taking your brown dirt wool and attaching it to cover up any of the white that may be showing still. It also makes the cactus look like it's nestled in the pot nicely. Keep working this until you are happy with it. You can test it out every now and then to see where it's fitting. When you do get the wild hairs or the stray hairs fibers that are coming out, just so you can try pulling them. You can also give it a haircut later, but just keep working it until it is fully attached. When it is attached, it's ready to be shown in your home. Again, here are the different sizes. This is one that was a little bit less of core but was worked a lot more, so it's very firm, not much to it, but when you don't needle it as much, it's somewhat squishier. It's up to you on what the final product's going to look like, but I am thankful that you stuck through this and worked with it all the way through, and hopefully you have a beautiful forever plant. Thank you for joining me at Arts Alive this year. It was fantastic to be able to share a craft that I love very much working with. It's easy to work with in your home. You learn just the basics. There's many different ways you can take this. I started with the basics and now I'm happily making my whelps and fledglings. They are some of my favorite creatures to make out of wool. The wings are wet felt, and that's another way you can take the wool as well for a mixture. If the more tangible realm is your place, you can also start making a wool garden. These are a lot easier to keep alive and they look good for a very long time. So enjoy your forever plant, and if you do keep working with wool, let me know on Instagram or through the Art Center. It'd be fantastic to see your work, and if you want to hashtag ArtsAlive20, that would be perfect for us to share in your creativity as well.